the stated purpose, it becomes problematic, and Republicans, conservatives need to do a better job of exposing that particular problem that Judy John Leotude highlighted. The third number. And to me, this is really the saddest commentary on the state of the state. This really speaks to how barbaric we have become as a state, and I mean that word, barbaric. 51. We are 51st out of 50. Not an Obama moment, I recognize there are only 50 states, but we are also behind the District of Columbia when it comes to providing services to the developmentally disabled. And Dave can speak to this too, because I know he feels the same way I do. What civilized societies do is provide state services to those who need state services through no fault of their own. What this state does, and it's one of the reasons that families, it's not just businesses fleeing Illinois, it's families who have a family member with a developmental disability that are fleeing to states that are more civilized, to states that keep their promises, to states that provide services to those who need them. But what this state does instead is they sell their good intentions for vulnerable people. That's how they sell their big government agenda. And it's very interesting because if you listen to the rhetoric of good intentions, you will you will find that this is the constituency that Pat Quinn and the Democrats say they are hell-bent to serve. And yet we have the worst credit rating in the country. We have $40 billion in bond debt. We have the highest unfunded pension and public sector healthcare liabilities in the country. We've got, as Judy just mentioned, $7.5 billion worth of unpaid bills, and that's after a $7.5 billion tax increase just 2 years ago. So after all of that taxing and spending and borrowing and spending, if these individuals were the constituency you were hell-bent to serve, how could we be 51st out of 50 in providing services to them? See how those things do not compute? There's a paradox there. And I thought about this for a few minutes to try and reconcile these incongruent statements. And you know what answers this riddle? You know how you reconcile these two statements? It turns out that the people in charge of Illinois are lying to us.
Yeah, right.
I know, it's revelatory, I know. It was an epiphany for me as well. But my point is to say, my point is, how many people within your circles of influence, your friends and family and co-workers and co-volunteers and co-parishioners, how many people do you think know how barbaric we have become as a state? I would submit not many, not nearly enough. Because if everyone knew, then I think we would be at pitchforks and torches time. And so the charge is not for just what Dave providing leadership in Springfield or Dan providing leadership in Springfield. The charge is for you to be an opinion leader within your circles of influence. People who rely on your opinion, who look to you for what should I do, what's going on in state government, because they know that you're hyper-engaged. They know that you're at Wall Street on a Saturday night to support Dave McSweeeney and not out dressed up as Barry Gates or something at a Halloween party. So there's a challenge for you as well, because you know, as Chesterton, G.K. Chesterton, a great Catholic author, once observed that those who have embraced unreason are ready for unkindness. We have embraced unreasonable answers. We have embraced injustice. And it necessarily begets unkindness. You have to be unkind to treat the least of your brother as cannon fodder for a big government agenda from which they receive no benefit. You have to be unkind to saddle future generations with debt burdens as opposed to leaving them with opportunities. You have to be unkind to relegate 2/3 of our children in this state to second-class citizen status for life because they will never even have the opportunity to learn how to read, write, and think critically, skills that are mission critical in the 21st century. You have to be unkind. We should be the party of reason, and that's connected to kindness. And if I think we stand for those things the way McSweeeney has, the way Duffy has in Springfield, and we provide some more support for them from other districts around the state to create a leadership caucus, the kindness leadership caucus maybe, I don't know. But if we do that, then not only will the Republican Party be a majority party again, this will be a state that you can be proud of again. And with that, I want to turn it over to one of those leaders that I've been speaking about the last few minutes, and somebody that we've seen over the last couple of years is putting in the fight rather than kind of waving a white flag as some Republicans have done in Springfield, to fight for the economic liberty policy agenda and to fight for some of these kind of core values-laden issues that I've discussed here tonight, and that's State Representative Dave McSweeeney.
Thanks, Dave. Introducing my best friend, the love of my life, and the real star of the McSweeeney campaign, my wife Margaret. One for sure is that we are heading in the wrong direction in this state, and we need fundamental change. The Senate President earlier this week said, we don't have a crisis. We have $100 billion of pension debt. We need to save the system. As Dan Proft just said, what's happening is all the insiders, they always find a way to get the money. The unions get the money. But the people who are hurting are the truly disabled, the people who actually need aid, and they're being hurt by the fact that we're spending way too much money in Springfield. And guess what the answer of Madigan and Cullerton and the whole crew is? They want to raise our taxes again. And they've got a new idea. It's one of the worst ideas of all time. It's called a graduated income tax. Their idea is they want to give you an 11% rate. They don't think 5% is high enough. In fact, what they want to do is for any family with income above $7,000 per year, they want to raise your taxes. The last thing that we need in this state is another tax increase. I have worked with Dan Duffy. I have worked with outside groups, and I've worked with conservatives. We have lined up enough support in the House now to stop it, but we need to make sure that we're continuing to put pressure on the Republicans and Democrats, because over my dead body are we going to have another tax increase. What we need to do is we need to cut spending. I passed a constitutional amendment to eliminate the lieutenant governor starting in 2019. It is a step forward. We need to combine agencies like the controllers and the Treasurer's Department, and we need to cut spending. I have refused to take a legislative pension. I want to set an example. I believe that we need to make fundamental change in this state. And guess what the Democrats did in May? They decided that they would dramatically expand Obamacare here in Illinois. We know it doesn't work, as Dan was just saying. We know what a failure it's going to be, and it's going to cost us billions of dollars that we don't have. I voted no, and I'm going to continue to fight against the expansion of Obamacare because it's an absolute disaster. It's going to destroy our medical system, and we know what a failure it is so far. But we can make change. Ronald Reagan is my hero, so I'm an optimist. So what do we need to do? We need to fight for lower taxes. We need to repeal this tax increase. This tax increase is killing small businesses. I sit on the Revenue Committee, and one of the most disgusting things that I've seen so far is guess who gets all the special deals? The big companies. And I'm all for bringing jobs here in Illinois. I want to create jobs in Illinois, but I want to cut tax rates for everyone. I want to cut it for the small business person who is actually creating jobs here in this community, and I want to attract companies to this state. But what's happening is the only people who get tax breaks if you hire the best lobbyists, and you come in and you threaten to move out of state. I am going to vote against every one of those special deals because we need to keep taxes low for everyone in order to create jobs. And that's the key. You say, why keep taxes low? To create incentives. Look what's happening in Texas, and Florida, and Wisconsin, and Indiana. And look at what a great state Illinois is. We have great natural resources. We're actually creating a natural gas industry. It was one of the good things that we did in southern Illinois. Chicago is a great city, but we have terrible leaders. Terrible leaders in this state. And that's why we need fundamental reform. And what I'm going to continue to do, and fight with Dan Duffy, and fight with Dan Proft, and fight with so many people in this room, is I am going to fight for fundamental change. We can't just make little changes. We are heading the wrong direction. We need to change course. So what I'm going to do, and I promise everyone in this room, is I am going to continue to fight the battle for lower taxes. And that includes lower property taxes. We all know that we have to fight that battle here at the local level. We have a lot of great village presidents and mayors, but we have some who are spending way too much money. So I favor actually freezing property tax levies. I passed a bill to make it easier for taxpayers to stop bad local projects. So what I promise you is I will fight for lower income taxes, I will fight for lower property taxes, and I will fight for real spending reduction. And we also need real reform. And what I also encourage everyone in this room to do is talk to your friends, talk to your work colleagues, and encourage them to get involved, but in work and support Republicans. We have a chance to take over this state. Next year is a midterm election. Pat Quinn is the Democratic nominee. Pat Quinn, a nice guy, but probably one of the worst governors ever. When you look at his policies of higher taxes, more spending, that's his solution. We need fundamental change. I will continue to fight the fight. I will fight for lower taxes, less spending, real reform. Thank you, and God bless you for being here.